Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming, for joining us for this brilliant fireside chat with incredible pioneers in the art and technology space, Robbie Barrat and Robert Norton. This discussion is perfectly in line with our current exhibition, Awaken, Metamagical Hands, curated by John Maida and Robert Norton. The show highlights artists working at the intersection of human creativity and computational potential, featuring works by Robbie Barrat, Joshua Davis, Golan Levin, Leah, Lauren Lee McCarthy, John Maida, and Helena Sarin. Before we dive in, I just wanted to mention that Lauren Lee McCarthy's Speakeasy is currently on display in our project space, which is on the lower ground floor, and it will be on view until the 14th. Alongside Zach Lieberman's Circle Stripe series, which was part of our 100th resident celebration. That one is also available to view until the 14th of September. So a little bit about our speakers. Robbie Barrat, a Dublin-born, Western Virginia-raised artist. He's known for his pioneering use of machine learning and GANs, exploring fashion, architecture, and art history. His work has been exhibited internationally, including Ars Electronica, Tate Place for Tate Modern, Musée de la Mode Hasselt, and his debut show, Infinite Skulls, was a collaboration with French painter Ronan Barreau, and more recently, his practice has integrated into a broader creative process in projects such as Big Buck Hunter Restoration, which Robbie will speak further. And joining him is Robert Norton, CEO and co-founder of Fireside, who has co-curated the exhibition. Thank you, and without further ado, let's begin.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Pega. Well, thanks everyone for coming out on a rainy Tuesday. But this guy, Robbie Barrat, is definitely somebody worth coming out for, because it's very difficult to get him to show up for live talks. And I'm delighted that you decided to come from Amsterdam today for a whistle stop, just 12 hours or so, or 20, maybe under 24 hours in London.
I have my first day of school tomorrow.
And then back to school.
Yeah, back to school.
In your last year.
My last year.
Yeah. Which we're gonna get into. So thank you for being here, Robbie.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk for about 45 minutes. We're going to split the talk into kind of the early years, understanding like Robbie's emergence as an artist and how he started to see himself as an artist, and then focus a little bit about 2018, which I think was an important year for you, with your first NFT that was minted, or your first artwork that was sold as an NFT is probably a better way to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then your distance from the space, and then the work that you're showing in this show alongside, so many other great artists that we're, fortunate to show, and really sort of where you see AI today and some of the work that you're working on moving forward. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right, let's get into it. So when you were born in Ireland, but then you moved to West Virginia. Was that?
I was like 2 weeks old.
Oh,
I mean,
right.
I don't. My parents are both from West Virginia. It's just I was born early, so I mean now I have a European passport, which is really nice. But I don't have any connection to Ireland, unfortunately.
All right. So it was like a sort of they were visiting and.
Yeah, I think they were like on a honeymoon or something, and then I ruined it.
But in what was it like? I mean, talk a little bit about you. You grew up on a farm, is that right?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit, like, how was it as a childhood? Were you?
It's nice. I mean, yeah, it was nice. I mean, I spent a lot of the time on the computer. I've always, loved to. Yeah, when I was a little kid, I really wanted to be a game designer, and I think I'm kind of finally fulfilling that with the work that I'm doing now on Big Buck Hunter. But yeah, I mean, it was it's a beautiful area. It's a beautiful area.
And were your parents kind of supportive of your time on a computer? Were they buying you computers? How were you getting access to computers?
We just had like a family computer. I mean, when I did start to do like work and stuff, my mom was very supportive because she did go to art school and she was an artist when she was younger. But when she stopped when I was born. So I've never really known her as like a working artist, but I just know that she used to be.
And what was your father doing?
He's He's an attorney, but he also like helps manage like the farm and stuff, and like it's like we it's like a plant like growing like crops. It's not like an animal farm. So yeah, I mean I don't know if I mean they're both very supportive. I think my mom gets it more with artwork.
And what about your kind of like classmates and stuff? Because initially you were, I guess, focusing more on computing and math.
Yeah.
That was your sort of area of interest, right?
Yeah, I was really interested at first in mathematics, and not necessarily like creative arts. I will say when I was like maybe 13 or 14, my mom did take me to an exhibition in Washington, D.C. of Namjoon Paik. And that was kind of the first time that I was at an art exhibition where I could really like, latch onto the work a bit. And she explained to me that Namjoon Paik, kind of like what he thought was going to happen with TV was kind of what ended up happening with computers and like the internet and all this like global connectivity. And I thought that was really interesting. I mean, it was really, I would say like the first art show where I was very invested in it and kept thinking about it. And I think that really influenced me.
Were there certain exhibit? Was it TV Buddha? Was that in that show? One of his?
I believe it was. It was a lot of big monumental sculptures. A lot of big monumental sculptures, and also some small, very poetic ones. I don't know the name, but like the magnet on top of the blank TV, and the magnet makes like a very nice form on the cathode ray tube. That was one I remember.
And so, did you start coming back and start experimenting with old TV sets in West Virginia, or?
No. I think the first time that I really tried to do something creative with programming, it was really the very first project that I yet did with AI, and it was not a very serious project, but it was my last year of high school, and I trained a neural network to write lyrics like Kanye West, and then I was able to like get text to speech to say these lyrics over a beat. And I mean, it's not a serious project. It's not serious. I think at the time I really wanted to make visual art. I really wanted to make landscapes, because I've always loved landscapes. But thankfully, NVIDIA, the company, saw the Kanye West project, and they offered me an internship. So after high school, I didn't get into any university, so I was able to just go directly to NVIDIA and work there. And I learned a lot there, but was not.
And that was in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, and it was not really. I mean, I didn't think personally it was the most like fulfilling way of life to work in Silicon Valley. So, but I did learn a lot from that, and I'm for sure grateful for that. But it's not something I'd want to do forever.
Yeah, I think Jason Bailey said something like, Stanford wouldn't let you in as a student, but you were able to be a guest lecturer there.
Yeah, I worked there a bit too.
You worked in the biomedical informatic research lab.
Yeah, in a research lab there.
What does that mean?
I was really just doing AI stuff, just with a focus on molecules. I mean, I think that this is really about the time that I realized that I need to be an artist, before anything else. This was also the time when, when I was doing the nude portraits. It was exactly around this time, and it was before anything with NFTs. It was just when I was making, the images and the artwork. Which
we're going to get onto in a little bit. But just standing back to this sort of time where, because you were also represented your state at the science fair, right? When I saw you were in this National Geographic documentary.
I had a mathematics project
around extremely smart kids in their state that then would go to a national science fair and compete for a prize. And you represented West Virginia twice, right?
Yeah, me and a few others. And I will say that if I did live in a state with more focus on the sciences, because West Virginia is very rural and countryside. But if I did live somewhere like New York or Virginia, then there's no way in hell that I would ever get to the International Science Fair. So I would not classify myself as a super smart kid.
But NVIDIA thought you were pretty smart.
They liked the project. They liked the Kanye West.
Yeah. How did that come about? How did they hear about it? Was it through this?
Somebody did a profile, somebody wrote an article about it. Mm-hmm. And then they saw that, and they kind of just offered me an internship from that.
I mean, what do you think about that? Because, I mean, back then was it 2017?
2017, yeah.
2017. So NVIDIA was big, but it
Yeah.
wasn't quite, I mean, it was more like known for, I guess, game processing and I guess
I think
Bitcoin
so.
mining and stuff like that.
I mean, they were,
But now it's,
yeah.
became the world's largest company at one point, didn't it?
Did it?
I think so.
I mean, I'm glad for them. But,
But I mean,
yeah.
in terms of just where, I guess, how AI's changed from
Yeah.
2017
Yeah.
to now where we are in 2024, did you have this kind of sense that the world was moving in this direction? You were interested in working at NVIDIA?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I was very interested. I was working on self-driving cars there, and when I went in, I thought that it would be like, the absolute future. Like it's going to be in like 4 years. There, I really thought that it would keep progressing and everybody would have self-driving cars. But I think towards the end of the time that I was there, I was a bit maybe disillusioned, if that's not too harsh to say.
But how long were you there for? Like
A year. Yeah, a year.
And you were saying that like you found it, I remember we were talking about earlier, you were saying it was a little sad that you were kind of 17, you were looking at people kind of around your age that were going to lessons on campus and you were going to
when I worked at Stanford, that was a bit
lab with
depressing. Yeah,
people
because
who were
I
3 times your age or something.
yeah, because I really did want to go to school. I really did want to go to. I mean, because it's a normal thing for a 17-year-old to want to go to university. But I mean, I did learn a lot from the time there. So I mean, it's not. I'm grateful for it, and I think that importantly, I learned that I really need to just focus on artwork first, and not try to balance it. Because I mean, the whole time that I was at NVIDIA, I was also, making landscapes or nude portraits on the side. And
Were you able to do that because you had access to certain equipment or?
essentially, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That gave you a
essentially.
competitive edge, do you think, for other artists working in this
I mean, I
space?
did most of the work at my apartment that I lived in on my personal computer. But I mean, I did have like, it was more just like knowing how to. I mean, I got a lot of like nice programming experience from that job. But yeah, I mean, the balance was off because you have to spend 8 hours a day doing regular work, and there's not much time left for artwork.
And were you using like mainly open source
Oh yeah,
tools?
all open source. Yeah, and when I did get to NVIDIA, because I did want to do visual work before I got there, and when I did get there and I was able to actually have the computational power to do visual work, the first thing I did was I made the GitHub repository of like the pre-trained models for landscapes and stuff. Just the stuff on GitHub and like the scraper for an art data set. So I mean, I still am, very appreciative and very big on open source software.
But it's a little bittersweet for you, right? Because while you made that available, and that was for one of your projects,
Yeah.
then another artist group, Obvious,
Yeah.
took the work that you'd done, used it pretty much, and then kind of came up with
printed it out,
with a nice gold frame
Yeah.
around the output. And
Yeah.
The portrait of Edmund Bellamy was the first AI artwork that was sold at auction, I think towards the end of 2018. Christie's in Hong Kong, about
Yeah.
$500,000 or so.
I mean,
and their work would not have been able to take place without the use of your kind of
Perhaps
GitHub
not.
repos.
I think that really it's not necessarily like a legal issue or like that I'm mad that I didn't monetize my project. What I think was the most upset about at the time was that they were pushing this narrative with that work that was totally counterpoint to what me and like other AI artists like Mario Klingman and Helena Sarin were saying at the time, that AI is a artist's tool. It's an artist's tool. It does not have agency of its own. And Obvious's whole kind of press release was that essentially boiled down to like, our computer made this. And I mean, it was just really kind of counterproductive because I mean, back then, when AI art was much newer than it wasn't new back then, but when it was newer than it is now, there were a lot of preconceptions about, I mean, like if you exhibited the work anywhere, people would just not understand or not want to understand that, an artist made this and not the robot made this. And that was really frustrating to try to communicate to people. And then there's this huge sale that gets a bunch of press release, and the narrative that they go with is they're trying to frame it like the computer made it itself, which I mean, it's not a productive narrative to have it. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's not true.
But the work that's required between like the idea and then the output is increasingly getting done or can be done by a computer, right? If you think
Yeah,
about,
perhaps.
look at the way like we are with, I guess, your version of when you're using ChatGPT 2, and an homage to SolarWit and
Yeah.
instruction-based art, now it would be even easier to kind of develop the prompts if in some ways,
Yeah,
or
perhaps.
that it would take more steps of the process, the AI. Like, is that something that you as an artist are in a way having to like fight against? Like that you don't want the AI to encroach too much on your art making practice?
I mean, recently, I've not really been working much with AI at all. I've been mostly just working with more traditional generative systems and just software that I write. But I mean, I do notice in a lot of new AI artwork, it seems like compared to back in like 2017, 2018, 2019, it seems like all the artist processes are kind of converging a bit. Because I mean, I remember back like, every month or two, like a new technique would come out and everybody would kind of rush to implement it. And everybody had wildly different processes and would use, these networks that were designed for, I don't know, like something like a depth mapper for like a self-driving car or something. People would use them in very creative ways. I mean, now I think that it's kind of become almost like a product with like, stable diffusion pipelines that are just like ready to, prompt. I think prompting kind of ruined, I mean, for me, for my process, I think that I'm not so interested in prompting because what I'm interested in is the misinterpretation that can happen with like the nude portraits. What I did was, I mean, for the training process, I was able to ensure that the network would not correctly learn the human figure and would just make more, I don't know if it's abstract, but just more kind of impressions of a human figure. I thought that was interesting because it's a misinterpretation. It's work that's different from the training set, And also back then, you would curate the training set, so you would choose everything that this algorithm would learn from, and I just don't really see that happening very much anymore. I mean, and I'm speaking broadly with like I'm sure that there's still artists out there. I mean, Helena Sarin, for example, was making wildly different art with what I assume are like probably modern networks, but I have not worked purely with AI in a while. I would say.
No, it's interesting because obviously the gallery represents Hal Cohen, who is a pioneer in terms of like using machines and code in terms of his artistic practice. And back then, in the 60s, he actually was an artist in residence at the AI lab at Stanford in '69.
I didn't know
so
that.
people kind of often don't realize that the term AI, and art goes back, quite a lot longer than the last decade. And, back then he had to build his own blueprints, make his own plotters. There weren't kind of commercial plotters that you can get today that would kind of plot the art in the way that he wanted it to. And I think that gave him quite a distinct voice. And do you think that some of the sort of tools, and when we met in Bahrain in 2019, there was Christabel from Runway was there, and now some of these tools, whether you're talking about Stable Diffusion or Midjourney or Runway, that they may be a great help for businesses, but maybe kind of a bit of a double-edged sword when it comes to artists using those tools.
I think when the tool gets so developed like that, it actually kind of serves to like mystify the process and the role that the machine or AI plays in a creative process. And I think that's kind of, I mean, we can see that like with Obvious, when they had this narrative about the computer made this art itself. That's also kind of mystifying the process. So I think that, I don't know, because I mean, when I was doing the open source, the models, I really wanted, traditional artists to use AI in their processes, because I think it's really interesting when, you come from a different background, you're using this as an artist's tool. But I mean, it doesn't seem like it's really working out that way. I don't know. I mean, I'm really honestly kind of tapped out of the AI art sphere for the past like maybe a year or two.
And that's a conscious decision.
It's just
not use these tools.
No, it's just the way that my work is growing. I mean, there's no, in like the project that I'm working on now, Big Buck Hunter Restoration, there's no place for AI really. There's no reason that I would use it. it's just,
But
yeah.
I'm curious if you've like, because of the success of AI, whether that's kind of like maybe pushed you in another direction where you don't want to be associated with it, a bit
No,
like what happened with NFTs and the way
no,
that you
I don't
kind of
think
changed
I
your
don't think it's the
relations to
same.
that. It's not the
I
same.
mean, maybe it is the same because it's just the way that my work has changed and what I'm interested in. I mean, it's, if it doesn't hold interest, then I'm not going to go back to it, you know? But
All right. Well,
yeah,
so let's focus on. I think 2018 is a pretty big year for you because your first, I guess, your first digital art sale happened, right? Or were you selling
yeah.
art before that when Jason?
No. This was yeah, this was before that. I mean, this was after I just made the first nude portraits. The first, yeah, I mean, the nude portraits that sold on Super Rare.
Yeah.
So I mean, I will say, at the time, I was making artwork. I knew that I wanted to be an artist, but I was not making physical work because I was making work that was so ingrained in like AI, and work that was about AI. I mean, because the nude portraits are about the misinterpretation, you know, that it didn't make sense for me to want to print that out. It made sense for me to want to keep this on the screen because printing out, I mean, it's a digital image. It's a digital image. It's not like a photograph where it's from something physical, but it's really just generated. It's purely digital. So I really wanted to keep this digital. And I didn't really know what to do with this work for a while. I was just kind of putting it online. But with NFTs, the idea was that you can buy and sell digital art. And that really made sense to me. I mean, at this point, there was no speculation or environmental concerns or any. I mean, it didn't really exist. There was no concerns at all. So it seemed perfect to, and I mean, and it was really nice for a little bit to have my work as NFTs. I remember the first sale on Super Rare was with Jason Bailey. He purchased some of the nude portraits from me for just like a few $100, just to show that, you know, digital art is worth money, even though it's a digital image, which I think was really, yeah, kind of radical. I mean, we saw that also at Christie's when we did the giveaway of the cards, and everybody just kind of threw theirs out.
Which in case everyone here doesn't already know about, it's probably worth just
Oh, yeah.
explaining the story because they now
Yeah.
are called the Lost Robbies, aren't
Yeah.
they?
So in 2018, this was after I had work on Super Rare that was tokenized as NFT, and this was still before, like, you know, the speculation and all this. But Christie's, I believe, contacted Super Rare and said that Super Rare can put something in the gift bag for all the attendants of the 2018 Art and Tech Summit. And what ended up happening was these cards that you scratch it off and you type in a code, and then you get, you know, the NFT. I made 300 nude portraits that were kind of very similar, kind of belonged in a collection together. And we gave these out on cards, and what happened was, like, I think the vast majority of people just threw them away because they didn't, and this was like after like Jason Bailey gave a talk and everything, but people just didn't see, I guess, anything interesting there. And then, you know, once the speculation and the hype hit, NFTs, these were very kind of focused on, and what was, you know, a giveaway. Because I mean, at this point, I was trying to make an abundance of artwork. I was very excited. I could finally do something with my work that's not, you know, just putting it online. I could actually, you know, give my work to somebody, and I was very excited about this. So I was really trying to make an abundance of work and do a giveaway of artwork. And with all the hype and the speculation, what we saw this turn into was like a treasure hunt, because the value went up and only a few people had them. So it was really kind of the opposite of what I would have liked to see happen. But
I mean, I think
yeah,
the auction prices of, like, depending on what ETH has been at, but they've topped it around $1 million, and so sometimes they're known as the $300 million airdrop because these
yeah, but I mean, this is
NFTs
not
were
this is
given
not what I
away,
was doing. I
which
mean,
at the time, you know,
there was no speculation. I mean,
36 or so have been claimed out of 300,
Yeah.
which is not what you were doing,
No.
and in a way, some other artists might have been absolutely delighted that, you know, something that they had produced suddenly, you know,
Yeah, but I mean, when it's
super rocketed
when
in
it's to
value.
that extent, because I mean, people, I would remember I would like, because I was still working on art. My process was developing, and I would always see like videos and stuff online of people talking about my work and not even calling it artwork. people talking about my work and not even like showing the picture of what they were talking about. It was just all about the price. And the NFT, like the token itself, kind of superseded the artwork. And I think that's really my issue with it, is that it, yeah, I mean, this space just totally changed into something that it was not at all before, just completely speculative.
But just to, again, to kind of understand, like, it wasn't just your first artwork that was sold, it was also the first sale of an NFT on Super Rare, back in 2018. So in some ways you became like one of the artists that opened up the floodgates, and the ones that were kind of at that point known in the same way, like Pac and Rafik Anadol and people. In fact, people, or Mike sort of said, ask Robbie why he hates NFTs so much.
I don't hate NFTs. I mean, it's just not, for me, it's not part of my process anymore. I mean, my work has changed since then. The space has changed since then. So, I mean, it's just not something I'm interested in, and I haven't been interested in it for a while. So, I mean, it's,
how would
I mean,
you...
it just doesn't, I mean, I'm making physical work now, so there's no reason that I would, want to do it. I mean, it doesn't fit in with any of my work, so, I mean, it's something that happened. I mean, I'm not denying, the work that I've done. I mean, because, I mean, at the time it was really interesting, and there was this idea of, like, what could happen. But now, I mean, I think that's, for me, it's just not part of my process or my work anymore,
Do you think it could be again? Will you do digital work in the future?
I mean, yeah, I'm doing digital work, but no NFT. I mean, I think they're two totally, digital is like a medium, NFT is like a mechanism for selling,
But it's a mechanism that collectors often want to buy through.
Well, I mean, I mean, good for them. I mean, I hope that they find some great NFTs, but they won't be for me.
Or more, okay, let's flip it around another way. Like, do you think there's other mechanisms that are better for the sale of digital art than NFTs?
A gallerist? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if we're talking purely digital.
Yeah, in terms of like preventing against copying,
Well, I mean, I'm not making purely digital work. I mean, all my new work is, sculptural or physical. I mean, as we see here, I think that this work that I have in the back room, where I have like the generative flowers that are burned into an e-ink panel, I have, they are prints of the landscapes, but they're prints that I've really been thinking about that for a long time, how to make them look as close to a screen as possible, to preserve that digital aspect of it. I mean, I don't think that this work would ever have happened if I stuck with NFTs, and because it is kind of a crutch to an extent, where you're able to just, instantly finish and sell a digital image. I don't think that I would have gone further and tried to develop my work physically if I'd stuck with that. So, I mean now, I mean, I don't hate, or I mean, for some people it works great, NFTs do, but for me it's just not it's not something really that I've thought about for a long time.
But other people have constantly come to you asking you to do more, right?
Other people ask a lot of things.
But I think that's a really interesting point about you as an artist, which is that, you make decisions that define you and that have come to define you. And, a lot of people make decisions that accelerate the accumulation of their wealth or their fame. And in some ways, not in some ways, in absolute ways, you chose to kind of turn your back on like the ability for you to have done more of that under that kind of like guise. So there were specific things, I guess, around the way that the market was evolving that you really disliked. And I'm trying to
I mean, the market and all of this is so far away from creation. And I think what I'm interested in is creation and making artwork. So it's I think it's just two different things.
Absolutely. But the problem of art as a product, is not purely confined to NFTs, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. It's not.
So here you're in a gallery. The gallery, is in the business of selling art, and you're fine with that. But at the same, and presumably, you're fine with, the auction market for your work.
I mean, it's really is not something that greatly concerns me. I mean, it really just isn't something that I focus on. You know, I mean, I'm working on new work.
Yeah, we're sure gonna
I'm
get.
not, when I make work, I'm not thinking about how am I going to sell this, how am I going to pawn this off.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the time 2018. What other things that happened? So it wasn't just about the success of the AI generated news. It was also, you know, you met Caroline and Albertine, and Caroline's here.
Yeah.
You started working with your gallery in Paris.
Yeah, the Avant Gallery Boston. Yeah.
And you also collaborated for the first time with another artist. Is that right?
I think that was probably the most fruitful thing to come out of. I mean, for a long time, which was, so I was doing these nude portraits, and Caroline Vossen, who's my gallerist still now, she and Albertine saw the nude portraits, and they contacted me, and they said, would you like to come to France to work with Ronan Barraud? He's a French painter. And I said, yeah, of course. So it was the first art show that I ever did. It was after maybe 6 or 7 months of working with Ronan, who's a very traditional painter, and really exploring. I wouldn't say he's not traditional, but he's a painter. You know, he's not a digital artist. But I mean, really having a show and a dialogue. I mean, at the beginning, it was really a confrontation because, you know, I came into his studio. He's a painter, and I have all these images. A lot of the generated landscapes, he referred to them as images of paintings, which is totally correct. I mean, it's like a if you have a photograph of a painting, that's an image of a painting. But now, I mean, the landscapes that I was generating are kind of like images of paintings that don't exist, you know. But we had a really great dialogue about, you know, how an artist using these new tools would work versus how a traditional artist would work. And what he was doing, so every time he will like finish a painting or pause work on a painting, he'll use the leftover paint on his palette to make a painting of a skull. So he has thousands of these skulls. They're like this size. And initially, I think Caroline posed the idea that this would be a good data set for working with AI. And it was a really good, so what happened was I would offer, you know, generations of skulls, then Ronan would maybe correct them by painting over them or, you know, scraping away from the back of the plexiglass that they were printed on. And we had a back and forth. It was really fruitful for me to also see how, you know, somebody like that, like an artist that I really admire, works. And I took a lot of things from that in terms of like his painting process that I was able to then, you know, replicate or take influence from computationally. And then at this point, I think I really shifted from making work that's just like a straight generation from a network to having software or tools that I write that then I use in kind of a little bit of a more manual way. I think that was the point where that happened after I saw how Ronan worked.
And you're also like continuing that dialogue, right? I mean, I was in the gallery last year or earlier this year actually, and saw some of the, you know, incredible kind of panels where you and Renaud kind of take equal part, or you sometimes don't really know whether you're looking at a painting or one of your kind of, I don't know how to describe it, software-enabled kind of prints that are kind of mounted behind plexiglass, a little bit like what we have here in the back. In the back of
I mean, the
landscapes.
plexiglass is so it still resembles a screen, you know, and it's not totally losing the digital. I mean, because, you know, for Renan to work on it, it has to be physical, you know, for him to interact with it. So, but yeah, I mean, we still are working. We still do have a dialogue, but that show, the first show that we had together was at the Avant Gallery in the beginning of 2019. And there were also two installations. There was one, I remember Renan said, I think one of his wishes was that he could, because he has so many of these skull paintings, he said that he wanted to paint a skull for every Frenchman. So we have, one of the installations is it's a box that you look in and you press a button, and then the computer will generate an image of a skull, and it will only leave it up for about 7 seconds, and then it will kind of erase it and won't ever make the same one again. So I think that this is kind of a way to bring the work and the dialogue beyond just, you know, making physical images. Well, I thought that was interesting, and also to, you know, really bring the AI more of like a living way into the work, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think that was the first art show that I think I gained a lot from it.
Yeah, and to begin with, like when you were moving away from the kind of easy option, which was to sell more NFTs on NFT platforms, and you were kind of building interactive experiences that were shown in a gallery. Those were some of the box you talk about, but then also you did that sunset on the TV sets, didn't you? Which was an
that was a
installation of the
video.
gallery.
Yeah, I did a video that was, I mean, it was heavily inspired by Namjoon Paik. It was on a big TV sculpture, and it was a generated video of sunsets. And I have one of my friends.
And the sunsets were all generated.
Yeah, it's completely generated. But one of my friends, his DJ name is DJ Taurus. He did a DJ set in front of it, and then that was like the performance. But I really enjoyed that as well. I mean, that was a nice collaboration as well.
And then around that time, did you start? I think because remember when you came for dinner, you were showing us some of the sprays on Counter-Strike, and I think you were sort of looking around 2019, maybe a little bit later, 2020. Some of the, but maybe when did you start that project? And could you talk a little bit about what it is and where you're at with it now?
Yeah. So, I can't. I mean, okay. So there's an incredible art project called Velvet Strike from 2002, and I don't know if you all are familiar with.
You would have been 3 years old, so were
I didn't. I found out about it later.
Okay.
But there's this online game. It's called Counter-Strike. It's like a shooting game. It's one of the first realistic games. It takes place in like the Middle East, and there's terrorists and counter-terrorists, and it's a really interesting game. I mean, also the sense. I think it's the first game to have like an afterlife, because when you die, then you can kind of like your camera will float around and you can watch people fighting. But
ghost mode, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but I think it's the first game to do this, and it's really It's also one of the first realistic games, because in the '90s it was all about like fantasy, like Doom and stuff, or like you're in hell and you're killing demons or whatever. But Counter-Strike was like a real. It was really a important game, I think. But Velvet Strike was it was after George Bush invaded Iraq. It was a collection of sprays. So in Counter-Strike, you can choose a picture on your computer, and then whenever you want, when you're fighting or whatever, you can press a button, and then you can like kind of like graffiti that image onto the wall in the game, and everybody else that's in the match can see that as well on the wall. So usually people will just do something funny or like whatever. But Velvet Strike, the art project, was a collection of anti-war and anti-war graffiti for use in Counter-Strike. And it's a really, really strong project, and it did spread, and people got really, really angry at it.
And when you spread it as a project, it was releasing digital images of. It was
releasing images that you can spray on the wall in game, and they're all anti-war images. A lot of them feature the characters from Counter-Strike, like the terrorist and the counter-terrorist, together. I mean, I did a lot of work based on that because I really love this idea. Also now, in the older versions of Counter-Strike, not many people are playing it violently anymore. There's like a new way of playing the game called Surf. It's like a movement-based game mode that's also just made by the community. So it's not something that the makers of Counter-Strike like published. It's just kind of a natural evolution of the game, where it's turned from this like hyper-violent shooter into like a movement-based, almost like a dance or like a racing game or something. I think it's really interesting that this happened like naturally, And I'm only speaking about the old. There's new versions of Counter-Strike that people still play competitively and violently. But I was making work about that for a while, kind of after Velvet Strike, maybe just like Velvet Strike fan art. But then this kind of turned into work that I was doing on Big Buck Hunter. So I've been working for the past 2 years on mostly pretty much just on Big Buck Hunter. So it's an arcade game that I knew from my childhood. It's from 2000. It's visually a very beautiful game, but it's a deer hunting game. So you have like a light gun and you shoot deer. And what I've been doing for the past 2 years is I've been completely reverse engineering this arcade game and making it so that it's not violent anymore, and making it generative so that new landscapes will constantly be generated by the machine. I have to modify the deer behavior because like in the original game, the deer in the game, they only have animations for like being startled and like running away. So, I mean, I really, to make it peaceful, it's not just like a subtractive where I'm just removing the shooting, but really you have to, reverse engineer it and then modify it so that, the deer can lay down or even just like walk or eat.
Is there a way to play the game, or is there no
I
more
think it's just
playing the
something that you
game?
can watch.
Just
Yeah.
watch.
I mean, I think honestly on one hand, it's just, kind of, I don't know if pacifying, I don't think pacifying is the right word. I think what I'm really trying to do with Big Buck Hunter Restoration is kind of restore it to how, like the world was kind of like before the fall, like before the fall of man, where, there's no violence, there's no death, and it's eternal. Because I really want this to continue being able to generate, scenes with deer forever. And I mean, I've been
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier, and it reminds me of, two projects. One that we saw at Art Basel in 2016 by David Clairbout, which is called Pure Necessity, where the artist kind of recreated every frame from the Jungle Book, but took out Mowgli and took out all the narrative, and so was left with this rather sort of idyllic kind of images of just animals and beautiful sort of jungle backgrounds. That similar way of stripping out the narrative from something. But in your case, you're completely generating the game fresh, right?
kind of, I mean,
You're
yeah,
using,
'cause-
it's not like what Cory Archangel did with Super Mario Clouds, where you're
Yeah.
sort of taking something out, kind of deliberately hacking an interface
Yeah.
to leave sort of your mark. What you're doing is a kind of
I think it's more like
re-engineered
trying to
intervention.
transfigure it or transform it into something that's kind of good, and or something that kind of, I guess, serves like the original purpose of creation, I guess, where, yeah, because I mean, even like in like the landscapes themselves in Big Buck Hunter, even though they're pretty, if you look at it long enough, you'll notice that even like the positions of the trees and things are placed to provide like a shooting challenge, or like if a deer will run behind a tree. So I mean, it's sad because it is a very like beautiful world inside of the game. The game world is very like visually beautiful, but like every single aspect of it, I mean, and it makes sense, is designed to serve the player, to have, fun shooting the deer. But what I'm really trying to do is trying to transform it so that it serves, the animals, the whatever you want to say, that live in the game, So
And so while that's like a ongoing project,
Yeah.
hopefully you'll finish this year, and we'll
yeah, it's gonna be
will it
yeah.
get shown in Paris?
It'll be shown at my gallery, the Avant Gallery of Austin, probably this winter
So this
for
year.
sure. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
like
great.
in a few months.
So-
Yeah, I'm
so-
almost done.
And so along the way, when you're doing a project like that, which takes, I guess, what makes it take so long?
A
Something
lot.
like that.
I mean, getting all of the, because like at the time, because it is an arcade game. It is like a consumer. I don't know. It is a product, and at the time it was made in 2000. Like 3D graphics and stuff, having like low cost 3D graphics inside of like an arcade machine, I guess was kind of like sought after. So there are what the makers of Big Buck Hunter consider to be industry secrets in there. I mean, which obviously they're 24 years old now, so they're probably nothing valuable. But at the time, there is like obfuscation of code. I mean, all the code is compiled anyways, so you have to decompile it, or you have to find some way to intercept like.
So like digital archaeologist kind of.
Yeah, I do
finding
want to say like I'm not adding any new content to the game, any new like models or images to the game. I'm just changing how everything interacts with each other. So
when you're doing that project, you're also doing the works that are in this show, like the L systems and the
Yeah.
flowers, and doing some
Yeah.
of the landscapes. So how are you, as an artist, kind of like, how do you sort of divide your time in terms of, you've got your art school, you've got your big project, and then you've got other things that are coming along the way.
Yeah. I mean, I think honestly that the flowers that I have in there and Big Buck Hunter do match up very nicely. Because for me, I think Big Buck Hunter is kind of, trying to restore this, game world back to like a pre-fall state. And I think that, and it is kind of like a study of like the creation of the world, because I do have to make, you have to transform or do whatever you want to call it to this game world. But I think also like the flowers in there, I'm using very simple generative systems called L systems that were originally developed by a Hungarian botanist called Aristid Lindenmayer. But he made these systems originally to simulate plant cells and plant cell growth. But you can actually, you can just do a whole plant. And I think for me, that's really, that's like a study of yeah, again, the creation of the world and how plants are actually made and how the rules that they actually follow, because it's so simple, the rules that you code to get something like a plant when you're using L systems. I mean, it is like what in reality they're actually like following, these rules to grow. And I think that Big Buck Hunter, that really lines up also with landscapes, because I mean, it is something natural. It is a study of, the natural world or the created world or whatever you want to call it.
Do you feel like you're playing God a little bit when you're recreating these worlds?
I mean, I think that I wouldn't say it's playing God. I think it's definitely, I hope it's reflecting creation. I mean, yeah, the connection between like the creation, as we understand, like the physical world, and then between like creation and man's specific creativity. I think there's definitely, for sure, there's a link there. I mean, I think it's important to focus. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to have something like, the harmony of nature, something reflected in your work. I think it's interesting.
Because that's another, I mean, we were talking earlier that you may, after finishing art school, you may go to seminary, and that
I would like to, but it's such a half-baked idea now.
Is
Because
it?
I mean, yes, I think I would love it though.
your interest, but religion is important to you.
For sure, and I think it's very influential. I mean, especially with something like Big Buck Hunter, I think it's very much a driving influence. But also, I don't want to, kind of make the work inaccessible if you're not, religious. Because I mean, you could very easily see. I mean, Big Buck Hunter, it also is about, like nonviolence, and kind of trying to make this game world better heightened in a way. And I don't think that you need to be religious or to think anything to view the work or to appreciate that in the work, But I mean, for me, in my personal process, yeah, it is a huge driving influence.
Because you spent some time in monasteries, right? I
Yeah.
think this year as well, right? Were you in one in West Virginia?
I wasn't able to make it this summer, but I've been a few times.
Previous summers.
Yeah.
And particularly iconography was something that you were looking
Orthodox
at.
iconography.
Where you were
yeah.
saying that the perspective is reversed, which is kind of what was interesting about that.
I tried to reflect that. Yeah, so I'm very interested in Orthodox iconography and orthodoxy, and the visual. I mean, at first it was like just like the visual language that's present in these icons, because you'll see like they're so old. They're like pre-Renaissance, and we think that people weren't employing perspective back then, but then you'll see these icons that actually have like an inverse perspective or like an omnicentric perspective, and like very calculated, not naive or not. It was really shocking to see this, and I think at first I was just kind of taking it in as artwork, and I was trying to reflect kind of, I guess, the exterior of the icon in like the Counter-Strike work, But I think now with Big Buck Hunter, I'm trying to reflect the interior of the icon in that work.
I'm going to open up for questions in a bit, but just a little bit more. I'm just curious about, you mentioned about kind of creation and good and bad, and these sort of like, strong morality and ethics. And I guess are there some things that you would never do with your art? Like, I mean, you've already distanced yourself from AI, from NFTs,
Well, I mean,
what do you see as like good and bad art?
I mean, I don't think you can label it like that. I mean, just for me speaking, I mean, I think, my artwork, even though, some of it can be about like AI or new tools, I mean, it's stuff that I do care a lot about. It's stuff that's very personal to me, I mean, I do think that, these are some very interesting artist tools that we have, or very interesting subject matters. And, but I mean, I don't know, because it is personal to me, I wouldn't want to use it in a way that I'm not comfortable with. I mean, I think that's really all it boils down to. Just not wanting to do something, I mean, that would make me uncomfortable with my own work,
How does your religion influence your art?
I mean, I think I just have I mean, I think it made me appreciate like nature and stuff a lot more, or creation a lot more. I mean, I think with Big Buck Hunter, that's kind of the heart of the project, is bringing it back to this kind of, what I view as the original aim of creation, or the created world of, peace and nonviolence, and no more death. Yeah.
It's interesting that I was like, I know Nam June Paik's one of your kind of heroes,
Yeah.
and obviously kind of, foresaw so much of the way that technology has changed our lives.
Yeah.
But an artist that I was like lucky to spend a bit of time with Bill Viola, and I don't know if you know his work, sort of one of the pioneers of video art.
Oh yeah, I do.
But he also kind of like spent quite a lot of. He was very influenced by Zen Buddhism,
Yeah.
and that became kind of an
Nam June
actual.
Paik as well.
And Nam June Paik as
Yeah.
well, exactly.
Like yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that you can definitely feel it in the work too.
And one of the things that Bill Viola said when I met him, when was it, 2003, I think, when we were doing sedition art, was that he'd spent a year in the early 80s and kind of really practicing Zen Buddhism in Japan. And he said that, one of the lessons that he kind of learned from that experience and also from some of the Buddhist artists is that they would make something perfect, and then their discipline was to take something out so that you leave a little bit of kind of imperfection or space for the viewer to kind of approach the work or the object.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was getting at, like saying, like, is there something in your own practice, in religious practice, that influences the way that you think about your art?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about Buddhism. I mean, the monasteries I've been visiting are all Orthodox Christian monasteries. But I mean, I have heard of icon painters maybe not making a mistake, but maybe leaving something out or making a mistake for humility. Maybe
Would we find that in your code somewhere if someone was to
my
look at
code
it?
is already a horrible mess. I don't think I need to be any more. I don't think I need to do anything for humility at this point.
Robbie, let's just looking forward. So if the seminary is off the table, or
I don't know if it is. I mean,
but
God willing.
what's lying ahead? You're going to finish school,
Yeah.
and you're 25, got kind of a lot of opportunities. I think directions where you could go.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you'd like to realize in the next
Yeah,
the
I mean,
next
for
5,
sure,
10 years?
the first thing is the Big Buck Hunter project. And I mean, I am really wondering if I don't know what it would be yet, but I am very interested in, video games and video game aesthetics, because I think that a lot of back around, when 3D graphics were really coming into itself, a lot of the very interesting developments were made for games. A lot of 3D renders and stuff were made for games. And I think there are a lot of very unique visual aesthetics that are of our time are found in older games. I mean, I would really like to investigate more into this. I don't know exactly what I would do, but I think that there is something very rich there that's kind of overlooked because it's not of a serious subject matter. But I mean, besides that, I'm not sure. In terms of artwork, I mean, I don't have any ideas already that I'm working on. I'm mostly just working on Big Buck Hunter.
Are there any kind of other collaborations that you'd be looking to do?
I really want to keep working with Renan, the painter. I really enjoy every time we work together. I really do want to learn more about, painting icons, but I don't know if I would classify that as an art project, I think maybe it's closer to something else.
Can we expect future paintings by Robbie Barrat?
I'd like
at
to get
some
more
point?
into physical work as well. I'd like to, because I've been trying to at school for the past 4 years. I'm in art school in Amsterdam, and I've been making more and more physical work. I'd really like to get better at making, just straight up non-digital work. But I mean,
Are you the only person in class with a show in London right now?
I don't know.
Don't know. Well, what's your final project about for the school? Will there be kind of paintings?
There is a graduation show. There is a graduation show, and
any digital art, or
from me or
yeah,
from,
I'm just curious.
oh.
What are you showing in the?
Well,
in your final show?
I don't know yet. Because for I'm in the 4th year, and for years 2 and 3, the teachers want you to play around and work on a lot of different things, and then in year 4 you're supposed to have one project that you go with. But what I've done accidentally is I've been working on Big Buck Hunter for the past 2 years, and now I'm going to be finished with it a little bit early, and I don't know. I mean, I guess worst comes to worst, I'll just show that for the graduation show. I mean, because I can go on with it,
How do you know when to stop if you're just recreating? You're filming your white-tailed deer on your farm.
Yeah.
and then presumably what did you do with that video? You then did you turn it into some type of generative code?
Yeah. Like I'll like study it. I mean, it won't be like an actual, like I'm not like actually feeding videos of deer into the machine, but like it's just stuff that I study, like their behavior. I mean, I've been very fortunate that I can spend, basically unlimited time looking at deer when I'm home because they live on my farm. Just like in the forest, like they're wild. But
how do you know when to stop with big buck
I guess I don't.
hunter
I
restoration
mean,
project?
when I started it, I thought it was going to be like a 6-month project. But there's, I really want to, get it right and make it well. And yeah, I mean, I think I'll know when it's finished, but I don't know.
And is it something that you can replicate? Will there be multiple of these?
Yeah. Once it's done, it's just a modification for the arcade machine.
So you could get any. So would you do them as additions? Would you sell them? Are they not for sale?
I don't know. I think that something I was interested in was maybe trying to make a device that anybody could plug into a big buck hunter arcade machine that would modify that machine, and then maybe the device would be the artwork. But right now, maybe it seems like the actual arcade cabinet itself is the artwork. I'm really not sure because it's still a work in progress.
Good luck. Thank you so much for coming to the gallery for the Fireside Chat.